DogWorks Radio is sponsored by Alaska Dog Works. Check out their website at alaskadogworks.com.
You can support this podcast on patreon.com/firstpawmedia.
This episode of the podcast is brought to you by First Paw Coffee Company, specializing in private label premium blend coffee. If you're serious about coffee, you should check it out. First Paw Coffee's passion is high-quality, small-batch roasted coffee. They take the extra time to taste and get everything perfect before they release new blends. They aim to bring you a cup of happiness each time you pour yourself some coffee. Find out more at ak.dog/free and enter for a chance to win some First Paw Coffee prizes, a book from our collection, and tote bag. One winner will be selected at random each month. That's ak.dog/free.
From First Paw Media, sponsored by Alaska Dog Works Professional Canine Training Center in Anchorage, Alaska. This is DogWorks Radio, committed to families and their dogs to build lifelong and fulfilling relationships. Visit our website at dogworksradio.com. Now here are your hosts, Robert and Michelle Forto.
Hello and welcome everybody. This is Robert Forto for DogWorks Radio here on KVRF 89.7 in the Mat-Su Valley. RadioFreePalmer.org is our live streaming site. You can find all of our episodes over on RadioFreePalmer.org and check us out on social media by searching DogWorks Radio, and be sure to hit that subscribe button wherever you're listening to this podcast. And today we have a certified dog trainer calling in from Atlanta, Georgia. Her name is Chelsea Murray. She is an awesome advocate for canine sports and everything pets, and I'm looking very much forward to speaking with her. And she is also a fellow podcaster, and we're going to talk a little bit about that in a minute. Chelsea, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm doing good today.
Well, thank you. Chelsea, can you do us a favor and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you're all about, please?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Chelsea Murray, as you mentioned, and I own and train at a company here in Atlanta, Georgia called Positive Futures. And I'm a certified professional trainer that uses positive reinforcement-based techniques. So basically, I'm looking for my learner, four-footed, to enjoy the training process just as much as our human learners. And we do everything from raising puppies to taming our teenagers, working through those challenging adolescent phases, as well as some behavior modification and introductions to dog sports, including our dog-powered sports.
So you got your start in 2014. You're a graduate of the Karen Pryor Academy, and then right after that you opened your business. But you've been a dog owner most of your life, and your breed of choice is the Malamute, and mine is the Siberian Husky. Both are very, I would say, headstrong breeds in terms of training. Why did you choose the Malamute as your training companion, if you will?
Yeah, so I actually grew up with dogs, and I also had horses. And I always appreciated with our horses the challenge that they created for me. And so when I was looking at breeds, I certainly love the outdoors. My husband and I do all kinds of outdoor activities, paddleboarding, hiking, skiing. And so I was looking for a dog that would be a great outdoor companion for us, but also a dog that would give me a bit of a challenge and encourage me to be a better trainer. And so I actually ended up getting my first Malamute in 2014 and enjoyed the challenge. And that's really what spurred my interest more into the behavior side of things.
Excellent. So let's talk a little bit about that dog training school certification journey, if you will. As you know, Chelsea, there's dog trainers everywhere, and some of us are certified, many of us are not. It doesn't take much to call yourself a dog trainer. I tell people all the time, when I started my dog training career way back in 1994, I showed up at a park with a leash, a business card, and a smile, and really got started from there. And that, of course, grew into many things, including certification along the way. Why did you go that route instead of just, training a bunch of dogs for your friends and then say, I'm pretty good at this. I think I could give this a go as a business?
Yeah, well, originally when I was studying at the University of Georgia, I was on the pre-vet track. I thought I really enjoyed behavior and thought that I wanted to go to veterinary school and be a behaviorist, a veterinary behaviorist. And the more experience I got on both the medical side and the training side, realized that I really enjoyed that day to day. I really enjoyed being outside of an office, having every day be unique, and really being hands-on involved with helping improve that dog's behavior and change their behavior patterns more than I would be able to in the veterinary side of things. So after I graduated, I decided to go back to school and went to the Karen Pryor Academy because I felt like even though I had the understanding of psychology and learning theory, I really needed more education on how to talk to people, because a lot of dog people, a lot of animal people are very good at reading and understanding the animal side of things, but communicating with our human learners and navigating that business side can be a little more challenging. So I felt like I needed that personally to kind of go in and learn the ropes so that I could do that on my own.
Chelsea, it sounds like you're reading my bio when you mentioned your track through college and then, of course, into training schools and all that. That's exactly the same thing I did. I find that so interesting, even though it was, 20 years earlier that I did the same thing. So I think we have a little bit of a connection there. So I think this is going to be a great interview for sure. So you had mentioned that a very important portion of sort of this journey is learning how to talk to people. And I mentioned at the top of the episode that you're also a podcaster where we're literally talking to people, but talking to no one at the same time. We're sitting here staring at our computer screens, talking into space, if you will, with a microphone. Why did you pick the podcast route? Because so many of us dog trainers go the opposite way and do YouTube videos and the like. Not a lot of us yet are behind the mic with a podcast.
Yeah, that's interesting. I definitely do have a YouTube channel, and I post more of kind of the tutorial how-to information there. But when I was first getting started in dog-powered sports, I was a college kid in a college town in Athens, Georgia. There were not a lot of resources for me to gain information that I could find easily. And so one of the things that I really try to do through my business as I learn information, I want to be able to share that knowledge. And as somebody who enjoys listening to podcasts, I felt that for the information that I wanted to relay, podcasting would be an easy way for me to get that information out, and help connect listeners to both the information that I had to share as well as all of the people that I bring on in interviews.
And I was a guest on your podcast as we're recording this, I guess just a couple of weeks ago, and it was a real pleasure to be on to talk about my journey in mushing and dog-powered sports and all of that, which is sort of the focus of your podcast, if I'm not mistaken. How come you went that route versus, talking about pet dogs and teaching them how to sit and stand and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I felt like for my business and kind of for where I was in my journey, I had a lot of the pet dog platform covered already. With my business, we have a big social media following, and YouTube had already gained quite a bit of followers there. And so I felt like for me, I wanted to continue to expand, but also branch out a bit, moving to a new platform, moving to a new topic. So I wanted to focus that podcast specifically on dog-powered sports and utilizing positive reinforcement training techniques to help people get involved.
So, Chelsea, let's switch gears a little bit and jump back onto the business side of dog training. You're in a pretty big market there in the Atlanta area. I'm sure there's a lot of other dog trainers and one heck of a drive from one side of town to the other, especially if you're in the middle of rush hour traffic. I've had my share of driving through Atlanta for sure. Are you a one-woman show or do you have a team that works with you?
I'm not, thank goodness. I've got two other fabulous trainers that work for me. And so it's nice because we're able to kind of divide the city up and tackle different areas. We also have our own specialties and different kinds of cases that we enjoy. So it gives us the ability to not only reach a bunch of people, but also to reach a variety of cases. And fortunately, with the technology the way that it is, we also have quite a few international and national clients. We've got clients all over the globe that we're able to connect with and help. And so even though we live in a big city and even though, traffic might be a bit of a bear, we really do have the opportunity to reach a wide audience, which I really enjoy.
And I'm looking at your Facebook page right now, and I think this episode will air after the event, but you have the virtual puppy raising summit coming up this weekend. Is that something you're hosting or just a part of?
It is, yeah. So fortunately, I've got a lot of other wonderful trainers that I'm connected with, and that's part of the thing that I love about being a trainer and being what I would consider a lifelong learner is that I get to connect with people like you and people all over the U.S. that train. And I run or co-run several different training groups on Facebook with them. We've got a group specific to Alaskan Malamutes, and then we have what we started at the beginning of the pandemic, a pandemic puppy raising support group. So people who were struggling and trying to navigate this new world that we were living in and raising a puppy. And we decided together as a team that there were so many people in need and a lot of big questions that we thought, you know what, let's put together a virtual conference where everybody can come to one place for one weekend of jam-packed learning. And so we're really excited about that. This will be the first one that we will be hosting, but we hope to be able to offer this as an annual conference for breeders, puppy owners, and trainers.
And you're right. The training world has definitely changed. We had to pretty much shift gears overnight from meeting everybody in person to meeting a heck of a lot of people online and virtually. So yeah, the space has really changed. So let's talk a little bit about your market. We mentioned how big Atlanta is, and you guys have several specialties that you work with, you and your trainers. But I have a couple of questions for you about your city or your market. My first one is, Chelsea, what is the most common breed of dog that you see coming in for training at your place?
We see quite a few mixed breed dogs here. We have a lot of active shelters around the area and rescues around the area, and then people that are searching for mixed breed dogs from breeders. So we really do see a variety. I don't think that there is one breed of dog that would dominate if we looked at statistics, which is nice because then we get to see a variety of temperaments and help our clients navigate that.
So aside from your basic obedience, sit down, stay, come, etc., what is the most common issue that you see? Is it aggression? Is it separation anxiety? Is it, I don't know, thinking off the top, resource guarding? What is something that you see all the time there in your market?
We see a lot of reactivity. So when a dog sees some kind of stimuli or trigger and maybe has a larger than what we would consider normal response to it. So that could be through fences, through front windows, on leash. We have a lot of dogs, a lot of activity in the city. So a lot of dogs are in close proximity to one another. That can create frustration. It can create some stress and fear. So we have a lot of dogs that we are working with on eliminating this reactive behavior and trying to replace it with attention to handler and loose leash. And for the dogs that have more of an emotionally charged back to this, our dogs that might be a little more fearful, we have to work on helping them see the world in a different light. So using behavior modification training to really help them feel more comfortable about the busy city life that we live around here.
Yeah, that we see that a lot as well. And I think one of the big reasons for that is dogs just aren't socialized enough, whether they come from shelters and we have no idea of their background, or, we get these pandemic puppies, as we talked about earlier, and, they're raised with one or two people in the household and that's it. And here we are a year and a half into this, and they're seeing new things for the first time, and it just really it rocks their world, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. In addition to that too, I tend to find this disconnect between the word socialization and people's general understanding of it. I think that people, when they think about socializing their puppies, they think about taking them everywhere and doing all of the things. Or they think on the opposite side of that spectrum, they think, well, I have another dog in my house and I have kids, so my dog will be fine with dogs and kids. But I think what they don't realize is that it's not just about exposing them to things, but it's about building a positive association with novelty, so that when the dog sees something new or hears something new, or maybe even feels something new, they're not worried about it. So it's not taking the puppy everywhere with you, but it's being mindful about the places you do take the puppy, and you make sure that the puppy's having a good time. And it seems like this obvious thing, but oftentimes I see people trying to socialize their puppies, and the puppies are so overwhelmed by whatever's around them. And oftentimes that can be hard to navigate for new owners.
So Chelsea, you had mentioned that you and your team have specialties that you work with. What is your specialty, and why did you navigate to that behavior, that form of training yourself?
Yeah. So I really, with me and my clients, I like to focus on what I would call either sport foundations or adventure dog training. So I do a little less of the basic puppy raising. I do a little bit of reactivity, but I really like to help people learn how to take their dogs out with them, and get outdoors, get back out in nature, maybe set some goals for competition and be able to work with them on whatever sport that might be. I think it's something where if we focus on taking our dogs out places, you'll find that those manners tend to come more easily, because it's integrating the manners with a goal. I don't just want a well-behaved dog. I want a well-behaved dog that I can take out on the trails with me. And so by changing that mindset of the human and giving them a like-minded goal for them to be able to do something together is very good for their relationship, and really does help give their training a bit of purpose.
And that truly is the thesis of this episode, in introducing the dog not only into a manners system, but also having something to do, whether it be canine sports or adventure dogs or whatever. So, Chelsea, I think a lot of people, when they hear canine sports, they think of competition and, oh my goodness, I've got to train and be the best at this sport and, win medals and prizes and purses and all of that. That's not necessarily the case, is there? There's a heck of a lot of sport activities that you can do with your dog that may or may not involve any type of formal competition. Is that right?
Absolutely. When you're getting involved with things with your dog, it's just giving you guys an activity to do together for you to build a relationship, improve your communication, and have fun. And even if you take something like nose work, sure, there are nose work competitions you can go to, but you definitely don't have to. And for my clients that are more, goal driven and do want that competition component to their training, I always just remind them that we need to have an appropriate mindset, because the dog goes into these events not knowing if they've won or lost. The goal is always just to have fun, to be there with your dog, and to connect. So even when I go out and do competitions with my dogs, I'm never there to win. Winning is nice. Having a nice run is a bonus. Being acknowledged in the ring by a judge is nice, but that's never the purpose of why we go. We're always just going there to have fun. So we always need to remind everybody, whether they are competitive or not, to keep that mindset in their training.
And there has been a real evolution in both this sport and adventure dog sort of lifestyle, if you will. There are all sorts of things that you can do with your dogs. I know you mentioned that you like to paddleboard with your dogs, and bike jor and canicross and ski jor and all sorts of things that is typical of a Malamute that is your companion. But many dogs of many breeds and sizes can do a lot of these sports and really excel at them, can't they?
Absolutely. If we look back at the purpose of all of these dogs, they were bred for a reason. And a lot of their energy and personality and drive stem back to that original purpose. So even if we have a border collie and we can't get involved in herding sports, giving that border collie a job, giving them an outlet for all of that energy is actually going to result in a better behaved dog. You know, a lot of dogs that end up in rescues and a lot of clients that call me with behavior concerns, oftentimes the needs of the dog are not being met. So we need to make sure that we're getting in there and giving everybody a way to enjoy their time together. And oftentimes that can be accomplished by, you know, these outdoor adventures, these sports with our dogs. If people already enjoy being active, well, let's get the dog involved however we can, because then that dog has an outlet for all of those physical and mental needs that they have.
Chelsea, during the pandemic, there was a show on Amazon Prime called The Pack, and it was really what you were talking about. It was taking your dogs out on adventures and doing all of these sports and other things with your dog, and I really liked the show. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but it was a perfect example of how folks can sort of integrate their dogs in their activities, also have fun, potentially have competition, and just have a good time outside of your typical manners, obedience, dog ownership realm. Did you get a chance to watch The Pack?
I didn't, but it sounds like a lot of fun. I think I saw some commercials of it. I'm not a huge TV watcher, to be totally honest. You know, we try to be outdoors as much as possible, but I think that TV shows, you know, like that promote that type of outdoor adventure with our dogs are so important, because as dogs are in our lives for longer and longer, you know, we're stemming away from what people would stereotypically think of when we think of obedience, and thinking of their dogs more as partners and teammates. And I think that mindset shift also brings us into this whole new world and this whole new way that we can live with our dogs and enjoy their company.
Yeah, I totally agree. So we have about 5 minutes left, Chelsea. I'm really interested in really diving in to talk about your podcast on our podcast. I think that it's a natural transition from one show to the other, because I think a lot of our listenership will cross listen, if you will. So we had talked about it being a lot about adventure sports and canine sport, adventure dogs and canine sports and whatnot. But over time, you've had some really great guests on your podcast. Can you give a brief summary about a couple of the episodes and maybe a takeaway or two?
Yeah, absolutely. So my goal with the podcast, like I said, is to try to give, you know, information to people who might be just getting started in dog-powered sports. So canny hiking, canicross, maybe bike joring, scootering, attending their first races, just wanting to get outdoors and enjoy these activities more with their dogs. So we cover training topics. I had a professional trainer and colleague, friend of mine, who ski jors with her dog, and she came on and talked about preparing dogs for ski jor races. We talked about arousal and excitement at start lines, and we talked about troubleshooting training techniques for teaching on by, which is a nice way to get your dog to ignore distractions, which is one of the most common challenges that we see when we start to take our dogs out on trails. We also have had some big time mushers on the episodes. We had Nick and Joy Weiss come on with Lucky Fox Racing and Coaching. They talked about their experiences at Worlds, training and traveling with their dogs, and then building, strong athletes from both the canine side and the human side. So I'm trying to, have both a training focus as well as personal stories and experiences from our professional mushers to help kind of bridge that gap and give a lot of our people that are new to the sport that knowledge so that they can get started and get involved.
Yeah, we had Nick and Joy on our show, I don't know, maybe a year and a half ago or so, right when they were heading over to the World Championships. I think it was in Sweden back then, and what a very cool interview, cool couple. They obviously really enjoy what they're doing, and they're majorly competitive. I mean, if you're racing on the world stage, you're doing something right for sure in terms of competition. And I know that we talked earlier about it's not about always winning medals and taking the purse or whatever, but as a society, we strive to perform well at whatever we're doing. And I think listening to potential role models in canine sports can not only give us some training tips and tricks, but also hear their journey. And that's a very important part of a podcast, isn't it?
Absolutely. When we look at people that are competing at the elite level and doing this well, they're obviously doing something right, and they've gained a lot of that information along their road. And so they've got a lot of great stories to share, a lot of great tips to share. And again, even if I'm not planning on going to that world stage, having a lot of that information can help me with my training program, no matter where that program might be. So having that information, I really do believe that as people, when we know better, we do better. So providing those stories, that information that they've learned, to really help each person and their own dog achieve their goals.
So Chelsea, on our show, we always ask the same question. And yours is going to be a two-parter, if you don't mind, because you're involved in mushing sports as well as being a dog trainer. So I guess it's two pieces of advice. And that is, if a person comes to you and they want to get involved with dog sports of any kind, whether it be canicross, ski joring, or whatever, if you could give them one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say to find your tribe. So there are a lot of people that do all kinds of sports, and a lot of people, just like dogs, we all have different personalities and temperament. And so it's always a good idea to find a group of people that you connect with. The good thing about social media is that it's easy for us to connect with people. Some of my great friends live across the country and in different countries. And so it's really nice to have that social media platform to do that. So I would say that if you want to train in a certain way and use certain tools and get involved in a certain sport, keep looking for your people that are going to support you and help you gain access to the knowledge that you want.
Excellent. And now on the other side, if a person is interested in becoming a dog trainer and you could offer them one piece of advice, what would that be?
I would say that you, again, similar answer, but different. You do need to find your tribe in the sense that you need to figure out what kinds of tools you're comfortable with, what kinds of methods that you're comfortable with. And then I would say to be open-minded to continuing to learn. One of the best things about the dog training industry is that there is so much research being done all of the time. So make sure that you're continuing to dive into that research, to attend conferences, to build your own skill set, because the more that we know as trainers, the more we can give back to our students. And dog training is one of those industries where we certainly have the same rules of learning theory that apply to each dog, but we can get so creative in how we use that and how we troubleshoot problems. It really is not a, cookie cutter type world. We've got so many solutions to a variety of problems.
So Chelsea, what is the name of your training business?
The training company is called Positive Futures Dog Training and Behavior, and that's spelled like a dog paw, so it's PAW, Positive.
And the name of your podcast?
And our podcast is called Positively Dog Powered.
Easy to find with the same word there. And can they find that on all podcast platforms?
That's correct. Yep. And we've also got some social accounts for both on Facebook and Instagram where we like to connect to our listeners.
And Chelsea, where is the best place for people to follow you? Where are you most active? Is it Facebook, Instagram, Twitter? And what can they hope to find there when they follow you on your journey?
Yeah, so I'm active on Facebook and Instagram. Between managing everything, I find it hard to get on many more platforms than that. And, personally on my pages, I just share a little bit about our training, a little bit about what we're doing, life day from day, and, enjoying getting out and working with the dogs and enjoying their company. So my personal pages are less business, just because I cover that on other platforms. So it's really just about me enjoying the company of my dogs and enjoying this beautiful life.
Excellent. Chelsea, if you will, stick around after the show so we can finish up here. But on behalf of my guest today, Chelsea Murray, this is Robert Forto for DogWorks Radio. We will see you guys next time. Goodbye.
This episode of the podcast is sponsored by First Paw Coffee Company. Learn more at firstpaw.coffee.
From First Paw Media, this is DogWorks Radio. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we invite you to subscribe in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find a link on the episode notes. You can tap or swipe on the episode cover art, and you'll see some offers from our sponsors. You can support our show by supporting them. If you like what you have heard, we would love it if you could give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe too. Your hosts are Robert and Michelle Forto. Our producer is Robert Forto and created for First Paw Media.
Did you know that Alaska Dog Works trains service dogs for those in need throughout North America? Each and every service dog that is trained through the Lead Dog Service Dog Program and Michelle Forto and her team has an individual training plan. We train for autistic, mobility, psychiatric, and PTSD for our soldiers for service work. If you know of someone that may need a service dog, please take a moment and check out Alaska Dog Works on social media and at alaskadogworks.com.